Hey crew, welcome to ASTROHUNKS, the series where I analyze the birth charts of famous celebrity hot men for your viewing pleasure. In today's episode, we are going to be exploring the birth chart of one hot tamale, hot with a side of salsa and some jalapenos, baby! Ryan Gosling. Ryan Gosling is a famous Canadian actor, not American, he's Canadian, guys, okay? I absolutely love him. He's such a hard-working person. He's been acting and been on stage, been in performances ever since when he was young. You guys maybe know him from his Mickey Mouse Club days. He then played in Young Hercules, where he looked like a dreamy heartthrob, teen heartthrob, right? But I'm sure that you guys are familiar with his work from his more adult years, where he played in fantastic movies such as The Notebook, Drive, The Ides of March, Blue Valentine, and the more recent continuation of one of my all-time favorite sci-fi movies, Blade Runner. He is such a hardworking actor, and that's one of the reasons why I appreciate him and admire him so much. I think I remember reading an interview with him where he said that he wants to have a family and have babies, but up until the point when he is ready to do that and until he finds his soulmate, he's just gonna continue working, and God bless him for that. To me, Ryan is especially significant, not only because he's a talented actor, not only because he's a hardworking actor, and he looks really cute, he's definitely my type of guy that I find attractive, but he also helped me through a particularly dark period in my life. He gave me hope and love again, and he portrayed these characters that are vulnerably masculine in some way, which I absolutely adored. I was going through a divorce when I was living in Edinburgh in Scotland, and the beautiful part about Edinburgh is that it has these boutique, vintage, old-fashioned cinemas, and one of them in particular, Cameo, was the one that usually would welcome me almost every Friday night, where I would go to watch a movie of Ryan Gosling. I don't know what happened, but it so coincided that when I was recovering from my divorce and trying to put my life back together, he also concomitantly created a great number of movies. So I remember that period when I was just like, I could have gone with a couple of friends to see movies on Friday night, but I just said, no, I'm gonna grab a glass of wine, go by myself and watch Ryan play in Drive and play in Blue Valentine and The Place Beyond the Pines, and it was just so soothing to see him on screen. It's almost like I created this emotional bond to him. And then I had to look at his birth chart and realized why that happened. To be honest, my favorite roles of his are in movies that are not so well known. I know everybody raves about The Notebook. I know people really love Crazy Stupid Love, but I personally fell in love with his acting in very niche alternative movies. I absolutely loved him in a movie called Half Nelson. It's a bit of an alternative, not so well-known movie where he plays the role of a teacher that is inspiring a young generation before he also disappoints and breaks the heart of his favorite student. In addition to this, he played in a movie that really opened my heart to him. It's called Lars and the Real Girl. The subject is a little bit kooky and a little bit difficult to watch in parts, to be honest, but I don't know how or what he did in that movie, but he makes a man that could be considered a little bit creepy seem lovable and incredibly adorable in a way. So he has this really wonderful boyish charm that he adds to his characters. Not only that, but as you guys know, he's a wonderful dancer as well, as we could see in La La Land, a role that completely surprised me and also broke my heart a little bit due to the sad ending of the story. He's wonderfully adaptive. He can play Neil Armstrong in The First Man, for example, and he can have that really intense, controlled demeanor that we also witnessed in Drive. In one of his earliest roles, where he looks incredibly teenage-like and very poetic, he played a very very dark, shadowy figure that was recovering from sudden trauma. In a movie I absolutely adore because it starred one of my other favorite actors, Ewan McGregor, a movie called Stay. Again, it's not a movie that is so popular or that many people know about, but the story is so fascinating, and the way he acts as this haunted ghost-like image that is burdened by what has happened to him in the past, and he's not even aware of it because he's not able to remember what has happened fully. It's just absolutely breathtaking. I want to talk to you about the 5 important markers to me that stand out from his birth chart. There are many different things that we can talk about. His chart is peppered with aspects. He has some interesting patterns as well. I will mention them in this clip today, but as not to make it too long, I'm only going to focus on the 5 significant markers to me that make his chart stand out from all the other Scorpio celebrities that we've been analyzing this month. Before I dive into them, let's have a look at his chart. The first thing I think you noticed about Ryan's chart is that it has a very peculiar fan shape, with the majority of his planets parked in his 7th house, the relational house, the 8th house, the house of trust, intimacy, and power, and the 9th house, the house of freedom and travel and learning and exploration. Not only that, but he also has the moon on his midheaven. He's got a really powerful moon in Capricorn on his midheaven, which actually makes him come across as highly emotional, but at the same time quite restrained in his emotions. Capricorn energy, he's only going to get better as he grows older. So if he had an image that people tended to make fun of when he was younger, as he's growing older, he will take on roles that will actually play up this moon in Capricorn that is increasingly going to take authority in his life, because a moon in Capricorn is actually asking him to boss up emotionally. He's a guy that is able to take on commitment very easily. He enjoys emotional effort. He also likes emotional control. And oftentimes, I think he has to put a lot of effort into feeling things or showing other people how he's feeling. I remember I read an interview once when he said that sometimes he's not actually feeling what he's supposed to be feeling. And there are many times when his feelings tend to override the situation, like laughing at a funeral. That kind of idea, that kind of belief is a typical marker of his powerful moon in Capricorn. So, in combination with this moon in Capricorn, his other important placement is, of course, his sun in Scorpio. We see it very clearly here, the sun, this round glyph, and it's in Scorpio. But hear me out, guys. This guy is actually acting a lot like an Aquarius. Why? Well, it's because his sun, I was still caught up on this moon in Capricorn energy. His sun is conjunct Uranus, the natural ruler of the sign of Aquarius. So this guy is actually, in spite of the fact that he comes across as very warm, very loving, very romantic, this guy puts a lot of effort into actually showing his emotions, being expressive, and actually creating this warm personality. It's more or less his homework. This is not necessarily how he naturally is in his relaxed, quiet time. This is a very pragmatic guy with the moon in Capricorn. And I can tell you guys, because I actually grew up with a moon in Capricorn. My dad is a moon in Capricorn. I dated some people with moon in Capricorns, and they can be very lusty, very sensual, very pragmatic, but they don't really go off on fairy tale trips, or sometimes it's hard for them to understand spiritual energy because they're not really so in tune with their hearts. A moon in Capricorn usually has a deep father wound that they need to work through in order to cleanse it and then be able to open up their heart. And little is known about Ryan's dad, actually. Most of his life he was raised by his mother, and he usually enjoys making appearances with her and bringing her at events alongside with his sister, if I'm not mistaken. But his father is almost like this absent figure in his life. And this is indeed one of the wounds of a moon in Capricorn. Moon in Capricorn men, and he shares this placement with Brad Pitt, even though they might have their father close to them, so the father is still there physically, there is something wrong with the father. He either doesn't want to take up his fatherly responsibilities, and this is placed on the sun, so the sun with the moon in Capricorn needs to rise into this position of the provider, the authoritarian leader of the household, or it's something of the kind that the father is addicted, the father is neglectful. There is something here with displacing responsibility. And I do feel that the moon in Capricorn is a really important aspect in Ryan Gosling's chart, and it shows us how, in spite of his lovey-dovey and friendly and gender equal and kind of feminist supporter personality, he is a feminist ally, and this role of his has been popularized by the infamous "Hey girl" memes. So in spite of that persona, which is really rendered by his Sun conjunct Uranus and also his South Node in Aquarius, he is actually meant to step into an increasingly traditional, authoritarian, stoic role. He's meant to actually take on a lot of emotional effort. It's almost like with a moon in Capricorn, which is very similar to the placement of a moon conjunct Saturn in a person's birth chart, you're supposed to do some emotional weightlifting, emotional heavy lifting. People usually burden you with their issues, and you're gonna have to spend a lot of time patiently telling people no. Moon in Capricorns need to learn how to draw emotional boundaries with those people that drain their energy, and they need to prioritize who really needs to take up space in their heart. And I actually think that he's doing such a great job by finally committing to somebody and having children, in spite of the fact that I think making these decisions have really made him feel worried or afraid that he might not live up to this role of a father. So his big threes are Moon in Capricorn, Sun in Scorpio conjunct powerful Uranus, and also what actually adds this beautiful softness, this kind of nurturing masculinity role that I love about him so much, is his Pisces ascendant. This is what makes him stand out from other Scorpio sun. For example, with Mads Mikkelsen, we don't know exactly what his ascendant is, but in a previous installment of ASTROHUNKS, we talked about that guy's earthy sensuality, that guy's kind of like subtle come to papa vibes, right? Ryan doesn't have that. Ryan has more this figure of a wounded healer. He's very closely attached to roles where he's not afraid to cry. He's not afraid to also show his more dark or dubious side, like in Murder by Numbers, for example. But there's also this feeling that he wears his heart on his sleeve, right? Like we saw in The Notebook and in Crazy Stupid Love. Most of the time in his roles, he tends to kind of more or less play up or make fun of this traditional hunky, very well developed provider kind of masculine role. As you guys remember in Crazy Stupid Love, he really toned himself and he looked incredibly delicious, but at the same time there was an air about him, like he was just making fun of the fact that, oh, I'm a man, I need to look really good and have muscles, you know. And I do enjoy the fact that the thing that attracts me to him the most is that when he is not playing, you see a lot of images of him disheveled, just a hoodie and wearing glasses, right? So he has that kind of geeky, nerdy vibe about him, which is very strongly put forth and expressed in the next marker that I'm going to be talking to you. Number 2, his South Node is in Aquarius and his North Node is in Leo. The South Nodes of the Moon show our past life legacy and what we incarnated in this lifetime for. What are we supposed to accomplish? It's usually that we need to accomplish exactly the opposite of what we already are very familiar with. This is why psychologists call this placement the growth zone and the comfort zone. His comfort zone is acting like an Aquarius. He's detached, he's into gender equality, he is scientific, he's experimental, he's afraid of his own feelings. Even as he's feeling them, he tends to immediately detach from them and try to analyze them from a distance. This is Aquarius energy. It is spontaneous, it is lackadaisical, for a lack of a better word, but you know, words like this, like creating new words, are under the domain of Aquarians. For example, James Joyce, the famous Irish writer that created an almost unintelligible and unreadable novel, Finnegan's Wake, has this placement. He's an Aquarius sun, just as a parenthesis. But coming back to Ryan right now, so he's got a south node in Aquarius, and this is placed in his 11th house. So it's like an Aquarius energy being amplified by Aquarian energy, because the 11th house is the house that is naturally ruled by the sign of Aquarius, and it is under the rulership of Uranus. So do you already see the pingbacks and the harmonies in his chart? His sun in Scorpio, one of the most intense sign of the zodiac, the sign that is ultra possessive, the sign that finds it hard to let go of things, is actually colored very differently in his energy by the fact that he has Uranus in Scorpio. So this is a guy that tends to shock the public with intimacy. He tends to shock people with sexuality. When he appeared completely chiseled and completely delicious in Crazy Stupid Love, that was a shocker, right? And I'm sure that the ovaries of many different viewers exploded in that second. Mine certainly did. And in addition to this, he kind of shocked the world when, you know, it was announced that he's together with Eva Mendes. Nobody expected the two of them to get together, and they very quickly had children and got married after that. So that's this Sun conjunct Uranus energy, but also in the sign of Scorpio, but also all this Uranian energy pings back on his comfort zone, which is the south node in Aquarius. But let's talk a little bit about this north node in Leo. He is a natural born person meant to perform. I wanted to say for a moment natural born performer, but that's what he's actually growing into in this incarnation. So Ryan is supposed to stand out. He is supposed to make the world his stage. He is supposed to be a lot about his own needs, his own capacity to shine. He's supposed to be sexy, and he's supposed to take leadership. When he is part of a group, he's not supposed to blend into it. That's his comfort zone. He's supposed to passionately hold truth to a value and inspire others through the power of his role model. So he's meant to be happy, to laugh out loud, to be outrageous, to be ultra sexy and charismatic. Leo energy, the sun. The sun is a star. He is born to become a star. He is born to become a performer. And this energy, you can see very clearly from his Mickey Mouse Club days. You can see very clearly from his young Hercules role. Hercules represents hero energy, right? It's all about the physical strength of an individual, almost like superhuman strength in the face of adversity. But again, he was cast in the role of young Hercules. So there is something here with him actually finding it comfortable stepping into a more traditional, a more loyal, a more grounded and stable form of masculinity. One that is like comfortable with becoming the head of the household, Moon in Capricorn, the provider, the one that is radiant to everyone around him as well. But I feel that he's beautifully growing into this step by step through all the roles that he has taken. And I'm thinking that also he is looking for some sort of legitimacy in his domain as an actor, because it feels that other actors might tend to make fun of his romantic choices or of his roles or of his image as a hey girl, feminist ally kind of personality. And I have a feeling that he can be quite competitive with other men in his domain, because he has a lot of squares to his Mars. Not only that, but his Mars is in the most competitive sign of the zodiac, Sagittarius. And you see how it is placed here bang on his midheaven. So he has this very powerful Moon in Capricorn in the 10th house. And then we also have this powerful Mars in Sagittarius exactly conjunct his midheaven. So slowly, with time, as he gets more comfortable veering through these different roles of masculinity, from nurturing and caring masculinity to a more traditional, progressive, kind of stoic masculinity, paradoxically, he's taking one foot in the past rather than actually going forwards towards a more progressive version of masculinity. But this is what I see in his chart. He's kind of balancing between these two sides, and that's why I find him so fascinating. So Coming back to what I said, without confusing you further, guys, the North Node in Leo is about being center stage. It's about taking chances in life. You might have this in your chart as well, and in which case he will be a really interesting role model for you guys to see what is it that your soul is aiming to achieve. Usually people that have a South Node in Aquarius are not really into the limelight. They're more comfortable being part of a group of friends. They're more comfortable supporting other people, not taking themselves so seriously. And they can also be prone to depression. I really need to mention this because actually Ryan, I think, has been struggling throughout his life with feelings of low self-esteem. South Node in Aquarius, it's a cold placement. Together with the Moon in Capricorn, again, father wounding and a cold placement. Not only that, but he has his Sun in Scorpio. And as we all know, Scorpio energy, when it is not adequately expressed and channeled into a really passionate goal or undertaking, can eat itself up in self-sabotaging behaviors and addiction, in, you know, things such as sex and gambling and random ways to disperse your gorgeous energy. However, I do feel that he's doing his best to overcome all of these low vibrational energies and his tendency towards depression, towards not thinking that he's the best, towards feeling a little bit low and sad and kind of martyred, wounded, right? With a Pisces ascendant, this is the energy that he carries with him. But I'll talk about this more in a second. The third marker in his chart is something that I already kind of got into in the second point, so I'm really sorry if I confused you guys, but these things link up so well. And I do want you to keep in mind that even though I'm presenting this analysis by parts, it's all about how these parts come together to sing and really give him this energy that helps him achieve his North Node in Leo in this lifetime. The third important marker is this beautiful Mars in Sagittarius. This is gorgeous energy because Mars feels right at home in a fire sign. And we also have here Neptune conjunct Mars. Oof, this is an interesting placement and I really want to talk to you a little bit more about this. So Mars conjunct Neptune is not really the best kind of indicator to see in the chart of a man. This is mostly because for men, it is not considered so manly to be fluid, to be a good dancer or a good performer. Most of the placements that we see in Ryan's chart, I feel, have acquired him a lot of resistance from other people in his life. So for example, I'm sure that oftentimes in his life, his masculinity was disrespected by other men. Maybe other people tried to make him feel bad about himself by questioning his sexuality because he comes across so fluid, so malleable. And the fact that he's a very good dancer, as we saw from his Mickey Mouse Club days and from La La Land, is strongly emphasized by this Mars in Sagittarius. Mars in Sagittarius individuals are very good with their feet. They're very quick, they're very athletic, they're very agile. But his Mars, colored by Neptune, makes him one level up. It makes him incredibly adaptable. He's very quick, but at the same time, he can do very beautiful things with his body. I would imagine him on a trampoline. I would imagine him undertaking a triathlon. He is really, really good as well, potentially with animals and with horses in particular, because we heard from the previous ASTROHUNKS session that I did on Matthias Schoenertz, how the energy of a Sun in Sagittarius can sometimes pull him into playing into roles with animals, as we saw with him previously. But now coming back to the public image that Ryan has, it is one that is masculine, but at the same time sensitive. It is one that is emotional and poetic and dreamy and romantic, but at the same time, it can become quite violent. For example, that scene in Drive where he's simultaneously kissing his partner because he wants to protect her with his life, and then he turns around and he crushes that guy's skull. This is Mars conjunct Neptune on the midheaven. So he both terrifies you with his aggression, but then he completely makes you swoon because it's like, but he protected her. Oh my God. So there is this kind of double side to him, and it's this duality is very strongly played up by his ascendant in Pisces. Mars conjunct Neptune, why did I say that it's a bit tricky as well in a chart of a man? So some men that are very traditional might actually insult a guy that has Mars conjunct Neptune by calling him gay. Gay is not at all an insulting word. On the contrary, I think, you know, it's absolutely okay to call somebody that, but it could come across as an insult in certain cases where men define their masculinity by being heterosexual. Yeah, we're collectively moving away from such bullshit understandings of, you know, heterosexuality being the dominant form and other forms being weaker, and thereby we can use the term gay or homosexual to make somebody feel bad. No, not. On the contrary, you know, both of these terms taken out of these really petty contexts just represents a person's desire to have sex with a specific kind of sex, right? So I see that here he might have been placed in this position. However, because he's so malleable and adaptable and very clever, South Node in Aquarius makes you really intelligent, he is able to make fun. He's able to joke around. He's able to turn the situation that could turn into a conflict into something light and, you know, modest. Neptune conjunct Mars and actually supporting, it's in a trine, it's in a harmony with his North Node in Leo. He's actually building this ego as he's going along. So I think that increasingly such jabs are gonna make him feel more and more annoyed. And he's going to actually fight back. He might actually have some drama with people in his environment, right? With the people that he works with. And I think especially with men, he has this sense of deep brotherhood, this deep connection to men due to his Capricorn moon. But at the same time, I feel that he can also be quite competitive with them and kind of really fight for important roles. I think that the most important thing for him would be to be nominated for an Oscar in his career. But at the same time, his Pisces ascendant is making him not want to strive too hard for the attainment of such material goods. So it's an interesting contradiction going on here, an interesting balance between his desire to become the king, to be the best, to be a world-renowned international performer, and at the same time keeping humble, being a family guy, being into, you know, unconditional love and being forgiving and letting go of all sorts of problems. I do need to mention that with a Pisces ascendant, his shadow zone is Virgo, so he can be quite controlling, quite exacting, quite detail oriented. Again, with North Node in Leo and with a Virgo shadow zone, this is about ego issues that he needs to process. And how is he processing them? Well, judging by the structure of his chart, he's processing them in personal connections. He's processing them in terms of how he organizes his belief system, the 9th house, in how he trusts and establishes power arrangements, the 8th house, in a long-term committed partnership, business partnerships, or his marriage partner, the 7th house. And speaking of his marriage partner, the 7th house shows a conglomeration of planets, what we traditionally like to call in astrology a stellium, which is about a combination of stars. Even though these are not stars, these are planets. The sun is the only star that we have in our birth chart, but we see here a multitude of planets parked in Ryan's 7th house. He has Venus in Libra, conjunct Jupiter in Libra, conjunct Saturn in Libra, conjunct Pluto in Libra. This is fantastic Venusian energy in the house of other people, how he relates with a group, how he acts in a family setting, how he is filming setting together with his co-workers, with other team players. We already know from the previous analysis that he's an excellent team player. He puts the needs of other people before his own, and that is his comfort zone. He doesn't like to stand out. He doesn't want to be the center of attention. However, with all of this energy here, he also comes into contact with very powerful Pluto and Libra, long-term connections, also people that are older than him, Saturn and Libra, and especially women, powerful, important, and even older women are helping put him on this path of his North Node in Leo. And I'm sure you guys know of the fact that he played with Patricia Clarkson in Lars and the Real Girl, and she took on this really beautiful mentorship kind of role for him in a period of his life when he was kind of struggling with certain issues, which I think were brought about by his moon in Capricorn. At the same time, he was in a relationship with Sandra Bullock, right? So an older woman. Sandra Bullock has a lot of planets in Leo. She is a Leo sun, but she also has a lot of planets in Gemini, which are very compatible with his energy. Not only that, but Eva Mendes, I did some digging and I saw that in her chart she has a moon in Leo. So it's fascinating, right? She has a Pisces Sun right on his ascendant, and it's very compatible with his sun in Scorpio, but she also has a moon in Leo. So the way in which she feels, the way she is in their intimate world is what he cannot get enough of. He is obsessed with that, okay? He is obsessed with her emotionality, with that noble kind of heart that Leo energy portrays. So that's a very important marker that I feel connects them very strongly. I saw that he has his South Node in Aquarius and Eva has her Venus in Aquarius, which is a typical indication that they met in a past life, because South Node shows past life connections, and with Venus there, they were lovers in a past life as well. She helped him, she loved him, there was a connection, a romantic connection between the two of them in a previous past life. So even though I was a bit worried when I saw their synastry chart, because his moon in Capricorn clashes with her moon in Leo, fire sign wants to relax in a completely different way than an earth sign wants to relax. At the same time, I saw these very interesting strings between the two of them connected to their South Node and their North Node. So keep that in mind as well, guys, when you're looking at the synastry between you and another person. Look deeper into the placements of your South Node and North Node, and not only on your moons. I mean, to me, two compatible moons make an excellent marriage, and especially if you have Sun conjunct Moon or Moon conjunct Sun, that's an excellent sign for a marriage partner. But in this case, we see that he picked a partner that he knows from a past life to help him fulfill his North Node in Leo. And his North Node in Leo is really supported by the stellium that I began talking about. The stellium in Libra is all about partnership, being together with someone, helping the other person, working towards an equal give and take. There is a very strong emphasis here on being together with a partner and transforming that relationship with them, transforming yourself as you're relating to someone and loving them, transforming yourself through the commitments you're making, but doing it in a very beautiful way, and doing it especially in the way in which you communicate, right? So communication is a really big aspect in his life. And I do see here that this stellium is actually putting big pressure on his moon in Capricorn. Libra is squaring Capricorn in his chart, and any signs that square each other show a karmic debt being paid off. Like Leo in a relationship with a Pisces, that's a karmic debt, or a Scorpio in a relationship with an Aries, that's a karmic debt, because their suns are squaring. They're not in a harmonious aspect as, for example, a Scorpio would be in a relationship with a Pisces. He doesn't have this karmic debt with Eva because their suns are compatible, but there is something here about him being in a connection with her and having his family, and in his family he's raising two daughters. And I read some interviews where he joked around saying that they're quite bossy. Interesting, yeah? So Pluto, Venus, bossy women, women that are dominant, women that he engages in long-term connections with to learn from. And this is really putting a big hold on his heart. So the emotional effort of worrying about his daughters, right? Even as they come across as a little bit bossy, he has to protect them. He has to be there for them, and putting this effort on his heart, right? His heart is the moon in Capricorn. So it's a very, very interesting way of actually seeing how the stellium of planets is really putting all this pressure on his emotional world. But he's using it in very beautiful ways. Like he starred in First Man, a role that is increasingly about him taking his role as an actor more seriously, showing the depth and range of his personality. And that also talks about, you know, his North Node in Leo. Again, I keep coming back to this North Node in Leo because I think it ties his chart beautifully. Number 5, I want to talk to you in depth about his ascendant in Pisces and his shadow zone in Virgo, mostly because I think it describes so well how he is as a lover and some of the hidden characteristics, what we might not be so well aware of as we're very focused on his midheaven energy. That's basically what we see. That's the public image that we perceive, a person's midheaven. So we already talk about how he has his Mars conjunct Neptune in friendly, people-loving, broad-minded Sagittarius. And also he has his moon in Capricorn, which talks about loyalty and stability and commitment. It's like that quote from the Notebook that it's gonna be hard, but we're gonna work at it because I want you and I'm never gonna let you go. That's moon in Capricorn energy, right? And in combination with Mars and Sagittarius, we win at whatever we set our minds to. That's the energy of a victor, of a winner. However, it's really interesting to imagine how this guy is in the bedroom, and trust me, I thought about it many different nights because I'm irrationally in love with this guy. He just ticks all the right boxes for me, and also because most of the planets in his chart touch upon my own. I also have a Venus in Aquarius. I'm also a Sun in Pisces, like his wife Eva Mendes. So for the time being, I can only hope that, you know, in a parallel universe, we're already together, me and Ryan, we have our own family. But in this reality, in this incarnation, he chose Eva, and I can only be happy with the fact that she shares a lot of planets with me. So, okay. I take my wins where I can take them. Let's get into the smutty part. I'm sure you guys are here for this part especially. So I'm not sure if you saw Blue Valentine, but when I saw that movie, a particular scene stayed with me in my mind. It was the scene when he's actually performing oral sex on his partner, Michelle Williams. It's interesting because that scene looks technical but actually quite erotic, and it made me think about, wow, this guy has technique, this guy really knows what he's doing. But while it can be quite technical, it can also be a little bit emotionally detached. And I also did some digging and found out that Michelle Williams is a Virgo. So this energy is playing out in his 7th house, that space of his shadow self. So in the bedroom, he can be quite technical. I'm sure that he's incredibly good with his hands, and I'm sure that he's excellent at oral sex and at anything that has to do with manipulation, you know, finger manipulation. So what makes me think that he's good at oral sex is not only that scene, but it's also his ascendant in Pisces. And as you guys know, water signs are some of the best givers from that point of view. Like anything that has to do with the mouth, anything that has to do with the oral environment is represented in that kind of an energy. Now, of course, I understand that the character he was playing in that movie is very different than how he is in real life. And of course, I understand that even though his co-star is a Virgo Sun, Michelle Williams, that doesn't mean that he behaves in the bedroom in a similar way as we saw it on a silver screen. Keep in mind, guys, that those scenes are, you know, thought out and planned long before we actually see them on screen. And, you know, it's a lot of technicalities and people need to think about what they're going to do in those sex scenes. So it has nothing to do with the sheer raw animalism that actually takes place when, for example, he desires a partner and he just goes for it. But I do think that there is something quite technical about the way he might make love. I think that this is a guy that's very much about the visual aspects with so much water energy. So he loves how a partner looks like. He takes it all in, and part of the pleasure of actually being together with a partner is how he is able to take her in with his eyes, because Scorpio Sun and Pisces Ascendant, but also with a Virgo shadow self, a North Node in Leo, a Moon in Capricorn. This is a guy that works hard to please his partner and expects the same thing in return. It's a clear tit for tat. Not only that, but I do feel that with a South Node in Aquarius, he can be quite spontaneous. He can be quite erratic, you know, in the way in which he relaxes. I feel that he might go through periods when he has sex for a very long period of time, almost to the point of exhausting his partner, and then he doesn't have sex for 6 months, you know, maybe while he's away filming. This is a guy that is able to be loyal to his partner. Although I'm a little bit worried about that North Node in Leo, in certain cases it can talk about a family guy that indulges in flings and random love affairs to feed his ego. But I'm having a sense that Pisces on the ascendant and his Sun in Scorpio is keeping him ultra connected to his partner, as long as he feels that sexual attachment to her and that deeply spiritual, soulful bond to her. Also with the Moon in Capricorn, this is a guy that is very committed and finds it very hard to let go of his partner, even if they might be going through certain ups and downs in a connection. This is a guy that really sticks to a partner even when the going gets tough. So that's my astrological 2 cents analysis. I made this video extra long. I'm really sorry about this, but I'm actually not sorry because I absolutely love Ryan Gosling. And as I said, this is a biased analysis, and it's an analysis that I made primarily to please myself. Also because it was his birthday, I wanted to celebrate that and the fact that we reached the 10th episode of AstroHunks. I do need to answer your questions very quickly. Yes, there will be a series on female actresses. I'm already planning it. I'm working on how I should stylize it. I'm working on some of the women I should feature. It's gonna be called Astro Babes. We're going to be exploring the birth charts of famous celebrity women. And no, there won't be an AstroHunks on Johnny Depp or on Leonardo DiCaprio, mostly because I don't like these individuals and I don't support men that engage in any form of violence or their name is connected to any form of violence against women. Also, I am not into Korean actors. I'm really sorry about that. And you guys keep sending me all sorts of things from Korean boy bands or Korean actors. I don't know, so I'd rather not talk about something I don't know. Maybe at one point, if I get into Korean actors and I start getting into the birth chart of a specific one, I will prepare an AstroHunks for you. But until then, I'm sorry to disappoint you. There won't be an AstroHunks on any of the people that I just mentioned. Okay, thank you so much for listening. If you are thinking of getting a birth chart from me, I offer bundle packages. I offer that in a single option. I also offer a transits report. You have everything you need to know by clicking on the first link in the description box below. Thank you so much to everyone who's listening. Thank you for enjoying the series. I'm sending you so much light. Mwah!